It's July 2025, and America's just unwrapped the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a law promising prosperity, but with a price tag that's anything but subtle. The bill makes the 2017 tax cuts permanent, locking in lower rates for individuals and corporations. Supporters call it an economic supercharger. Critics see a $3.3 trillion gift to the wealthy, paid for by everyone else. The real question, is this a win for all, or just a select few? Let's find out who's really cashing in. Time to see who's holding the winning hand. The big winners? Corporations and the ultra-wealthy? Corporate tax rates are now locked at 21%, a permanent windfall for big business. High earners get the largest tax breaks, while middle-class families see only modest savings. Special loopholes let business owners pay even less, while regular workers pay full freight. The estate tax exemption soars, letting the richest families pass down fortunes tax-free. For most Americans, these changes mean little. For the top 0.1%, it's a generational jackpot. The deck is stacked and not in your favor. Massive tax cuts come at a cost: public services. When lawmakers push for sweeping reductions in taxes, the money to fund essential programs and services has to come from somewhere. That somewhere is often the very programs that millions of Americans rely on every day, from healthcare to food assistance and education. Medicaid faces $1 trillion in cuts, with millions at risk of losing coverage due to new work requirements and red tape. These changes don't just affect numbers on a budget, they mean real people could lose access to doctors, medicine, and critical care, especially children, seniors, and people with disabilities. SNAP, food stamps, funding drops, hitting families and older Americans hardest. For many, this means less food on the table, more trips to food banks, and a daily struggle to make ends meet. The most vulnerable are left to bear the brunt of these cuts. Clean energy incentives and student loan programs are slashed. This not only threatens progress on climate change and affordable education, but also limits opportunities for future generations to thrive and innovate. Even free tax filing is axed, benefiting private companies. Instead of making taxes simpler and cheaper for everyone, the system becomes more complicated and costly, with private firms profiting while ordinary people pay more. Each cut chips away at the social safety net, all to fund permanent tax breaks for the wealthy. The gap between rich and poor widens, as those at the top gain more while those at the bottom lose vital support. The bill trades public good for private gain. Public resources are handed over to private interests, while communities are left with fewer services and less support. The question, who pays the real price? In the end, it's working families, seniors, and children who shoulder the burden, while the wealthiest benefit the most. For many working families, tax season brings a few small perks, like a higher standard deduction that shaves a bit off the tax bill, or a slightly bigger child tax credit that helps cover the cost of raising kids. There are also a handful of temporary deductions, designed to offer some short-term relief and make ends meet just a little easier for a year or two. These benefits can feel like a lifeline, especially for families juggling bills, groceries, and childcare. But the reality is, these perks are fleeting. Most are set to expire in just a few years, leaving families to wonder what comes next. The clock is ticking, and when these temporary measures run out, many will be left with less support than before, facing the same financial pressures without a safety net. Meanwhile, the story is very different for corporations and the ultra-wealthy. Their tax breaks, especially those tied to corporate profits and inherited wealth, are built to last. These permanent changes allow the wealthy to plan not just for the next year, but for the next generation. With estate tax loopholes and corporate tax cuts locked in, the wealthy can pass down fortunes, property, and privilege, creating a legacy that grows stronger with each generation. For most working families, the tax code offers only a fleeting bonus, a small refund or a temporary credit that disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. But for the rich, these laws create a structural advantage, cementing a system where stability and opportunity are reserved for those at the top, while everyone else faces uncertainty and struggle. It's a tale of two taxpayers, one who receives a lasting legacy and another who's left with little more than leftovers, hoping for a better break next year. The system is designed to endure, but its benefits are not shared equally. For some, it's a foundation for generational wealth. For others, it's a cycle of temporary fixes and ongoing uncertainty. So when we look at who's really getting the better deal, the answer is clear. The rules are written to favor a select few, while the rest are left to hope for change. Is this fair? That's the question echoing in living rooms, workplaces, and city halls across the country. When a sweeping bill like this comes along, it's not just about numbers on a page, it's about real lives, real families, and the future we're building together. Supporters say tax cuts fuel growth for all, promising more jobs, higher wages, and a stronger economy. They argue that when businesses thrive, everyone benefits, and that prosperity will eventually reach every corner of society. But history shows the benefits rarely trickle down. Instead, the gap between the haves and have-nots often widens, leaving many behind while a select few surge ahead. Critics argue the bill guts opportunity, undermining the very programs that help people climb the ladder. They warn that the promise of growth is often just that, a promise, not a guarantee. They see resources shifting from the vulnerable to the wealthy, deepening divides and making it harder for struggling families to get ahead. The act adds trillions to the debt, a burden that will weigh on future generations. It's not just an abstract number. It's money that could have gone to schools, healthcare, or infrastructure. And with that debt comes the risk of future cuts to Social Security and Medicare, programs millions rely on for security and dignity in their later years. It's not just a budget, it's a blueprint for a more unequal America, where opportunity depends more on where you start than where you want to go. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act makes a clear choice, prioritizing corporate profits and wealth over public services and shared prosperity. It offers permanent breaks for the rich, locking in advantages for those already at the top. For everyone else, the help is temporary, relief that fades just as quickly as it arrives, leaving families to face rising costs and uncertain futures. For a few, it's beautiful, a windfall, a celebration, a chance to get even further ahead. But for most, the cost is real. It's measured in lost opportunities, tighter budgets, and dreams deferred. The question remains, can we afford this kind of beauty if it means leaving so many behind?